Welcome back to my channel, everyone. Alright, without further ado, let us dive straight into the recap of Tsukimichi, Moonlit Fantasy Part 28. The story begins when Beren guides Makoto and his group into a hotel so luxurious that its atmosphere immediately gives off a sense of calm and elegance. Beren leads them to a private room overlooking a beautiful garden, a space designed for relaxation while enjoying fresh air. They sit on the floor around a small low table, prepared for drinking tea. A short while later, Tomoe arrives after finishing various administrative tasks. Upon seeing her, Makoto takes the initiative to apologize, feeling that he has burdened her with troublesome responsibilities. However, Tomoe responds casually, as if it is not a big issue at all. She quickly shifts the conversation to something more pleasant, explaining that aside from the legendary fried rice the place is famous for, there are still many other delicious dishes they can enjoy during their stay. Hearing about food, Mio immediately raises her thumb with a satisfied expression. After everyone has gathered, Tomoe signals her subordinates to begin reporting the results of their mission. The meeting officially begins. Beren, she, and Hokuto sit neatly in proper Seiza posture, while Mio sits in her own relaxed manner. Only Tomoe and Iroha appear to be sitting in Seiza naturally. Beren starts his report by explaining that he entered the country separately through the northern mountain route to gather information. Upon hearing that region mentioned, Iroha immediately reacts in shock, as the northern mountains are known to be a particularly dangerous border area. She even stands up to ask a question, but Tomoe promptly stops her and tells her to remain calm. After that, Tomoe formally introduces Iroha to Beren and the others as a guest who will be accompanying their journey. Only then does Beren continue his report. He explains that when he visited the dwarf villages in Lorel, he found that the treatment of demi-humans there was different from other countries. Laurel values and respects demi-humans more highly, a tradition that originated from the teachings of the wise in the past. The wise never practiced discrimination, and as a result, the people of Laurel adopted those values. However, Beren also warns that this situation existed only during the time when the wise were actively leading. After their departure, the treatment by humans in Laurel gradually changed, and relations between races began to show signs of deterioration. There was even a major conflict recorded in the past due to the prolonged absence of the wise. Suddenly, Iroha interrupts again in a raised voice, accusing that the conflict was not caused by humans, but by demi-humans demanding too much authority. Hearing this interruption, Tomoe immediately cuts her off firmly. She warns Iroha not to keep interrupting and tells her to save her opinions for later. Iroha sits back down and quickly apologizes. Beren continues his report without being affected. While he did find peaceful villages, several other mountain settlements showed clear evidence of racial conflict. After that, he reports good news regarding the Kuzunoha Company recruitment mission. Throughout his journey, he has spread information among skilled craftsmen, and many of them are highly enthusiastic about migrating to Asura. Hearing this, Makoto wants to confirm one crucial point. He asks whether there are any races or settlements too deeply involved in Laurel's politics that could potentially drag them into major trouble if recruited. Beren answers firmly that he has fully followed Makoto's instructions. He only recruited individuals with no political ties whatsoever, ensuring that they can leave at any time without consequences. In this way, a safe distance is always maintained. After feeling relieved, Makoto finally asks about the matter that has been bothering him for a while, the mysterious sprite known as Mariko-san. As soon as the name is mentioned, Beren explains that he does not know much, but according to the information he has heard, Mariko-san is a small creature that resembles a cute girl and always wears a hat. They are known for being powerful, but they are just as famous for being lazy. They even prefer floating in the air rather than walking. Mio, who has been listening closely to the explanation about Mariko-san, eventually shares her own theory. She suspects that the small creature might be a descendant of spirits, since their characteristics appear similar to natural elements. However, Tomoe immediately expresses doubt toward that analysis. According to her, a race closely related to spirits would not be able to coexist with a superior dragon such as Doma. There is a long history of hostility between superior dragons and spirits, making the possibility of the two living side by side extremely unlikely. That explanation causes Makoto to recall a major secret that Root once revealed to him, a dark chapter of history in which the goddess created the spirits to replace the dragons in governing the elements of the world. That one-sided decision sparked deep hatred between the two ancient races. Even so, Makoto quickly pushes that memory aside before his thoughts drift too far into matters that could provoke the church's anger if they were made public. As the discussion begins to reach a dead end, she suddenly shares her perspective. She believes that the possibility of Mariko-san coexisting with the Doma dragon inside the labyrinth does not need to be overcomplicated. In her view, the sprite may simply like the place, and as long as Doma is not disturbed, the two could coexist without conflict. Tomoe considers this for a moment and eventually nods in agreement, judging that the similarities in temperament between the Doma dragon and Mariko-san do indeed make such a scenario possible. After Makoto's curiosity about Mariko-san is satisfied, Beren asks for permission to continue his report. He then presents a sword that was given to him by the dwarf chief he met. The sword is specifically meant for Makoto and is said to be the favorite weapon of someone named Lori, who is known by the title Demon Dragon Slayer. The moment the names Lori and Einkaref are mentioned, Iroha, who had been sitting calmly, suddenly jumps in shock. She lets out a hysterical scream before immediately fainting. Fortunately, Makoto reacts quickly and catches Iroha's body before she hits the floor. Tomoe simply lets out a sigh at the extreme reaction of the history enthusiast, while her eyes remain fixed on the sword with a mix of curiosity and caution. As Beren begins explaining the technical details of the sword's construction, Makoto senses something strange. Suddenly, an unfamiliar voice echoes inside his head. He looks around, but no one else seems to notice anything. That voice turns out to be coming from the Einkaref sword resting on the table. Speaking in a casual tone, the sword introduces itself and even calls Makoto bro, while boasting that it is the greatest dragon slayer of all. At that moment, Makoto realizes that his communication ability, which was once granted by that foolish goddess, has evolved in an increasingly bizarre way. He can now communicate not only with animals and non-human beings, but also with inanimate objects such as weapons. While Beren continues explaining technical details that Makoto no longer hears, the sword keeps talking, claiming that only chosen swordsmen are able to hear its voice. Makoto remains silent, since he himself is not a swordsman. He laments how his life is drifting further and further away from anything resembling a normal human, all while continuing to hold the unconscious Iroha in his arms. In short, when mealtime arrives, Beren, Hokuto, and she initially intend to eat at a separate location. However, Makoto asks them to simply eat together instead. Tomoe then presses a bell to call the staff. Not long after, the servants enter carrying a wide variety of dishes at a speed that leaves Makoto both surprised and slightly uneasy, considering the long distance of the hallway they traveled. The servants serve the food using a rotating table like those found in Chinese restaurants. Makoto becomes even more shocked, especially because the dishes presented are genuinely Chinese in style. The servants explain that Kanawi City indeed has this kind of culinary culture, but this particular hotel uses top-tier chefs, which is why the flavors are far more refined. After the servants leave, Makoto wakes Iroha, and their first dinner session in Kanawi officially begins. While enjoying the meal, Makoto listens to Einkaref explain its origins. From the sword's explanation, it is revealed that it was forged using the core of a parasitic tree. This type of tree survives by hijacking the bodies of wild beasts, consuming them from the inside before converting them into nutrients. The dwarves of ancient times used crystals extracted from these trees to create extraordinarily powerful weapons, including the sword now in Makoto's possession. However, weapons of this type have a fatal weakness. They must continuously be fed with strong materials or other weapons in order to keep their quality stable. Einkaref itself specializes in consuming dragons. A new problem emerges after its former owner, Lori, dies. From that point onward, there is no one left to feed it, causing Einkaref to enter a dormant state or long slumber, which leads to a drastic decline in its power. The dwarves of the past did not understand the biological mechanism of the parasitic tree that formed the weapon's core. They believed that the decline in quality was a sign of production failure or natural dulling over time. As a result, many ancient weapons of great value were discarded because they were considered defective. In reality, those weapons were never broken. They were simply starving. Einkaref itself admits that it has not eaten for a long time since Laurel's death. Upon realizing this centuries-long misunderstanding, Makoto immediately shares the information with Beren. The moment he hears it, Beren can barely close his mouth. His eyes widen in disbelief as he struggles to accept that the mystery behind the decline of his ancestors' weapons is something as simple as a biological misunderstanding. His expression wavers violently between shock and embarrassment. Beren's dramatic reaction makes Makoto feel slightly guilty. Tomoe, curious about how Makoto could possibly know such details, asks for an explanation. When Makoto admits that he has just been chatting with the sword on the table, the room is instantly filled with an unusual silence. For Makoto, this kind of thing is no longer surprising given how chaotic his life has become recently. However, seeing everyone else's expressions, which are a mixture of confusion and unease, makes him realize once again that he has drifted even further away from the category of a normal human. To break the awkward atmosphere, Makoto focuses his attention on the fried rice in front of him. Yet the more he eats, the more confused he becomes. The taste is ordinary, nowhere near matching the reputation that people have been boasting about. While continuing to eat, he asks Hokuto and Shi to resume their report regarding their encounter with the mysterious mercenary groups. Aside from Picnic Rose Garden, there is one more group that truly stands out. Two women who call themselves the Apple People. Hokuto and Shi describe their abilities as something that does not make sense. One of the women carries herself like a dancer, while the other dresses like a nun. Tomoe appears to recall something, but before she can explain, Iroha nervously raises her hand. She admits that she was once saved by this Apple duo when she was betrayed by hired guards on the outskirts of Kanawe. She then reveals their names: Haku, a silver-haired sharpshooter disguised as a dancer, and Jinebia. Tomoe nods, confirming that she knows them from Iroha's memories. Iroha also adds that the two women are no longer in Lorel and have continued their journey north. Makoto himself feels that there is something unusual about the speed of their movements, as if they are able to travel freely from place to place. However, for now, he chooses to postpone investigating the mysterious duo and refocuses on the main issue before him, the Grand Labyrinth. Makoto's gaze then falls on Iroha, who looks back at him innocently, completely unaware of the dangers that await. Makoto begins to realize that traveling together with Iroha may have to end at this point. Bringing Iroha into the labyrinth would not only be reckless, but could also cost her life. On top of that, there are signs that Tomoki is carrying out a sinister plan in this city. Makoto also starts to understand that the assassination attempt some time ago may not have been aimed at him, but was instead a way to approach Iroha and gain her trust more easily. However, because the assassins likely harbor hatred toward Makoto, they ended up attacking him instead. Makoto then considers the option of dividing their roles. He plans to assign Beren's group to investigate the city, while the core team will enter the Grand Labyrinth. Fortunately, conditions in Sige are currently stable thanks to Rembrandt's strategies, allowing Makoto to fully focus on his main objective in Laurel, finding and recruiting the strongest mercenary groups to further strengthen Sige. So that is the recap of Part 28 from Tsukimichi, Moonlit Fantasy.